Welcome, 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 Facebook Live. We are here today to speak truth to power. Let's talk about race, and we are within the context of the Racial Justice Collaborative. So today we've got any number of announcements, um, and I'm Diane Wong. And welcome to Let's Talk About Race, the Racial Justice Collaborative Edition. And I'm here with my co-host for this series.
Pharaoh Saunders, always glad to be here.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Charles Minton, of course. Pleasure to be before you all once again today.
Well, thank you. And I want again to mention that we are the Racial Justice Collaborative today. We're talking about race, but we're starting to pinpoint exactly in 2021, February the 19th, who are we, and what are we talking about? We've got things that are coming up that it will become clear who we are. But let me ask Charles to speak about. Charles is leading this effort, one aspect of this effort, and I want him to speak about it and to talk about what that is within the collaborative, and then we'll all join in.
Absolutely. Thank you, Diane. So first off, once again, it's a pleasure to be before you all today. I think this is perhaps our most important podcast that we're doing today. So it's the essence of not only, talking the talk, but walking the walk, or specifically speaking power or speaking truth to power. So within the previous podcast, we've had discussions on, dealing with the police in terms of education and how to sort of change how specifically Black children in this country should be taught. We've had conversations in terms of developing civic engagement. So I think from there, now we're taking the next step in terms of, so within the Racial Justice Collaborative, what specifically can we do and are we doing to do our part in terms of rectifying the evils of white supremacy, which is, of course, very prevalent within our society. So with that said, this podcast, we're going to be discussing various events which we have upcoming. And I think it's really important not only for us to present it to you, but to, of course, extend our hand in terms of reaching out for support in reference to the work. So if anything, specifically resonates with you, please reach out to Diane or any member of the collaborative, because I think perhaps we've been caught up in terms of looking outside of ourselves in terms of that support. But now it's just a matter of just collaborating amongst like-minded individuals in terms of doing our part to rectify the evils which currently pervade our society. So this is a very important podcast, and I'm really excited to present all the really engaging activities and events that we have upcoming within the collaborative.
Yeah, thank you, Charles. Since you speak about the events we have upcoming, let me just start to share. We've got two things we want to share right now, and then we'll continue to talk. But here is an event, maybe I can get this done. Okay, first I have to put it behind this. It's always a complicated thing. Let's find out where it is. Oh, there it is. Okay, now I'm ready. We are going to share the screen so that everybody can see an event that we have going on. Can you see that? Charles, Pharaoh,
Yep.
You see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you can see that we're really putting out, we've got a number of events that are coming up that will start to bring in some awareness of the importance of certain things that we stand for. So on February 27th, one of our members, Sundiata is an author and a multimedia author and artist. And he's doing an event. We're all working with him to create this event, but he's doing an event that's geared toward families and children. And one of the important, let's just drop down to the bottom here and see that the question is, why do our daughters aspire to be princesses with long blonde hair? Or why, when we hear about an astronaut, a doctor, or a professor, do we imagine a tall white man? This starts very early in life, regardless of the intent of the parents. And also, Black children are not seeing Black images, their own images positively reflected in society. Every cultural norm, book, every television, everything is always all white. We're inundated with white culture. So Sundiata for years, for the last couple of years at least, he's been writing books for Black children about, or for, this is the important part. This isn't for just Black children. This is important for Black children, but it's important for all children to start to see images of Black children within the context of their families, and to see Black children as children, just like all other children. And so this is what we're doing. And so Sundiata created an event which is interactive, family-friendly, audiovisual adventure. He's got 3 of his books that he's going to story tell. He's not going to read the books. He's going to tell the stories, talk about significant snippets of the stories, and he's going to bring the children in the audience into it and ask them, how do you see this? For one story is about families. Mikeke is about a family. It's got sibling issues within the family. And then another is Sloppy Joe. Sloppy Joe, you see here, he's going to do this. We're going to meet Mikeke. Then he's got a segment of time with an audiobook. We're actually going to hear this audiobook called Johnny Come Lately. And Johnny Come Lately is someone who also always says, mine. This is mine. That's mine. Everything is mine. And I think we know kids, we know that that's a phase. Some people go through that phase, kids, and they get out of it. Some people are stuck in that phase. So he's going to talk to the kids about this audiobook. There's music. He's also a musician, so he's created music. I love his music because his books have a hip hop beat. So, and then he's going to talk about Sloppy Joe, the importance of being neat and clean. So kids can start to recognize that. He's going to engage with the kids. So in a nutshell, that's what we're doing on February 27th. We've reduced the price down to, we start with $1. This is donation based. Of course, we want to support the artist and support him in the work that he's doing. But we also want people to come. We want kids to come. We want families to come. So we don't want the cost to be a factor. So with a donation basis, it has to at least be $1 for Eventbrite. So we did that. So you can go to Eventbrite and look for Sharing the Black Experience with Children. The date is February 27th. And we hope to see you there. So Pharaoh, Charles, do you want to say anything about the importance of this? Should I stop this share or what?
Well, I think that, just to say a bit more on the importance of all of this, cultural representation, especially in things such as the sorts of media that you would be receiving in your very young years, if you're very informative, that's massive. Being able to see things that are more reflective of your experience and of yourself, even if just physically, that has massive importance. So this is a great example of something that goes towards reaching that positive end.
And let me ask you,
Right.
Pharaoh, you're the youngest person in the collaborative. And you're not all that young, but you're still the youngest person in the collaborative. You're
Mhm.
in your early 20s. And
Yep.
so, can you speak a bit about the importance for white kids, Asian kids, non Black people of color kids, all kids
Yeah,
to,
it's the same thing. So being able to see other people in those cases, in this circumstance, it just allows you to have a better understanding and to associate more with different types of people. That's always something that minority children in general have to do by default in the United States. Just because you're inherently exposed to, white stories, and thus from an early age, you can learn to associate with those stories and recognize the value of those stories. And there's obviously good in that, but it's important for everyone to be able to do that, including people that don't normally have those things, and to be able to do that with other groups other than just the white stories that are most common in media. So this is just another example of being able to reach out to that, which is very helpful.
yes.
Yeah.
Charles, you're a teacher, you're an educator.
Right.
What do you think is the importance of this?
Right. This really hits home. Just reflecting a long time ago when my first year teaching high school in New York City, Brooklyn, New York, and the principal, who was a Caucasian woman, we had a book club that as educators we got together and we had discussions on various books just to develop our pedagogy every month. And I believe it was the second book that was presented to the group or to the group of teachers was Bridges Out of Poverty by Ruby Payne. I don't know if you all are familiar with that particular book, but in it, Ruby Payne sort of outlines some of the I guess quote unquote issues that Black children in particular go through day to day. So the essence of the book is pretty much offering an excuse or pretty much outlining some of the reasons for as to why Black kids in particular struggle academically, in terms of not having a father figure, in terms of the negative images portrayed on television, and perhaps not having enough money to engage it or have tutors and vice versa, all these different aspects. So pretty much the focus was always negative, right? So this really hits home because I think, that along with, you hear various studies, that point out, let's say 80% of Black kids aren't reading aren't proficient in reading, as opposed to, let's say 45 to 50% of white kids. And then as they, progress on through grade school, the numbers get even more stark in terms of the disparities in terms of proficiency levels between Black kids in comparison to their white and Asian counterparts. But the numbers are often hollow because it doesn't necessarily provide solutions for rectifying the problem. So, I think we do a great job in this country in terms of providing analysis through paralysis in terms of outlining all the issues that, we're currently going through, but very little tangible solutions are provided in terms of rectifying these issues. And I think what's happening here within the collaborative, I think, is a way to rectify the issue, just in terms of young Black people being able to just read something which really resonates with their experience. To me, is at the heart of hopefully providing more engagement for young people to want to read and to build that intrinsic motivation for reading. So to me, this hits across all facets, just in terms of just within the collaborative, us coming up with, Cindyada, coming up with a really engaging way for promoting literacy amongst the Black community. And this is something that, as Pharaoh mentioned, this cuts across all ethnic groups as well, just, providing more engagement through understanding the learning experiences of the specific ethnic group and providing those experiences to young people. I think it's a great way just to foster literacy. It's such a huge component and something that needs to continue to be addressed within our community.
And one of the things that I like, as I said, Sundiata has created audiobooks as well as just the children's books. And the audiobooks have that hip hop beat that is,
Right.
Hip hop is a black phenomenon. And so when kids can hear this beat,
I don't know if you could say that now, Diane, but I got you though, in terms of like the influence that hip hop now has. But yes, it started off with
in terms of origin, yeah.
Yes,
I mean, obviously, lots
absolutely.
of people can engage in things despite the origin being found
Yes.
in a specific culture. Obviously, you can have like lots of cultures that engage with things like Asian martial arts, but doesn't stop it from still having its origin in Asian culture.
Oh, no doubt.
Yes, and so that's what one of the things that in the audiobooks, it has his audiobooks for children have the environment. The children, represents Black children in Black environments, but the situations they find themselves in, whether it's with somebody that's really selfish, or the need to clean up your room, or sibling fighting, that happens with all kids. So the kids that see that will be able to get a glimpse, sharing the Black experience. You'll see Black kids in the Black environment with Black music. It is Black music, no matter what else has happened to it. And they'll be able to see that that Black kids are just like other kids. All kids are like kids. So so there's a lot that's going on in the books that Sundiata has written, and in the music, because he's a musician. So in the music that he's creating as well. So people who come to this event at a tiny, minuscule cost will get a flavor of the Black experience for children, and adults will see that as well. All children share in a lot of common things, but there are things that are Black. There's hip hop music that's Black. You'll see other things, and so it's exciting times we're in. So I'm going to stop sharing this.
And then really quickly, Diane, just to just even further that point, in terms of like directly in the classroom, it's really important just to promote more, I guess, diversity with the books that kids are reading, because ultimately it sort of leads to, I guess, tracking in some respects. So, when students are in school, they have to pretty much get a graded level in terms of their reading levels. And oftentimes what they're being asked to read isn't culturally appropriate, or isn't culturally, I guess, accommodating in terms of with regards to the kids who are reading it. So they may come across different terms which they're not used to seeing, or they have no reference point of. So they oftentimes do poorly on these exams because of the lack of understanding of what they're reading. So I think this will change the whole narrative, and this will change the whole framework in terms of appropriately teaching Black kids if they're being asked to read material which they have an understanding of, which they have a sort of foundational basis for reading. So I think you'll be able to just accurately gauge how students are progressing with literacy and with their reading, if they're reading information that they are accustomed to, or if they have an understanding of. So this cuts across this cuts across the foundation of really appropriately tackling this issue. So this is, quite powerful, and for Sundiata to be doing this, I think is just amazing. And then from there, hopefully this could just sponsor various other individuals to just, develop children's books as well. So we could just literally just start a revolution in terms of, Black kids just having more access to reading materials, which will actually lead towards them reading on a greater level.
And not just that, Charles, as you're speaking about literacy and about test taking and those kinds of things. The other thing is that maybe we can start to talk about race. Maybe we can say Black kids. We can say Black kids, and you can see Black kids in a not the only Black environment, clearly, but in a Black environment with Black music as part of that environment. And then all kids can start to be able to say, I read a book with some Black kids in it, and I heard that hip hop music, and I understand that it's, it has a Black origin. So, or when Black kids and white kids, or all the kids, if they still read Dick and Jane went up the hill, fetch a pail of water. Then pretty soon you see these blue-eyed blonde kids, and then people will be able to say, okay, those are white kids, and look at there in a white environment. So we need to stop shying away from speaking about something that's so critical to understanding the United States experience, race. Kids have, it may not be real, but it's it's real enough because we live it. So we want to start to recognize kids. We can talk about Asian kids. These are Asian kids in this book. And then pretty soon kids can have a little more comfort level just with a discussion of race easily. We don't have to talk about racism. Let's just talk about race. Let's say race may not be biological, but we see things through the prism of race. So what do we see? We see Black kids, we see Asian kids, and maybe then pretty soon, maybe we can start to see context and environment and learn that Korean kids have a different experience than Japanese kids, than Chinese kids. So it's not just like Asian kids, like that's everybody. And so let's talk about race. So this is the starting point for that kind of and to make it that it's important to do that, and it's not taboo to talk about race. I mean, we want to taboo and stop the racism, but why can't we talk about race? So let's talk about, want to show the image of the new Racial Justice Collaborative has a new website. It's interim. We're going to keep it probably for the next while we're forming who we are. And so I'm going to maybe I'm going to share that and maybe not. That's too hard because, I'm not good at this. But so let's do this, Charles. Yesterday we had a meeting. We have once a month meeting of the collaborative, and so yesterday, what felt like to me to be the beginnings from my feeling level of something close to me, to be the beginnings of a grassroots movement that took place within the collaborative, and it had a lot of energy. And in process work, which we got some taste of yesterday too, in process work, when we are looking at what issues to focus on, one of the things that you look for is, where is the energy? And so there was a ton of energy around something that Charles is spearheading with. It's just getting started. So Charles, can you share that?
Absolutely. So this is actually sponsored from our last podcast. We delved into reparations. I think that's pretty much the power of what this podcast is becoming. It's sort of like sponsoring so much really important dialogue that must take place within not only our community, within the Black community, but across the world. That specifically, these conversations cannot be swept under the rug anymore. It must be addressed and immediately dealt with. But with that said, yes, we are beginning to, within the collaborative, analyze this, well, not even analyze, just developing what reparations in terms of the structure for it and the need for it, like what that should look like. And then of course, the implementation of it moving forward. I think it's really important for Black folks in particular to just be mindful of, we're far from quote unquote being safe within this country. I think there's a continuous war, which is continuing to take place for Black folks across all facets of our society, in terms of just having to just plow through white supremacist ideals. It cuts across all avenues, with being a Black person in this country. And I think at the heart, very heart of that is the demanding of reparations. I don't think we're in a place, as Black Americans, where we could ask for it. I think, the bill, the HR 40 bill has been pretty much in place for Congress to vote on, I believe, every year since, oh my God, what's the year? We're talking over 20 or 30 years. It's been put in place for lawmakers to vote. And pretty much it's been shot down up until, I believe, last year. In other words, folks are willing to now have a conversation about it. But, having a conversation and doing something about it are two different things. So,
So Charles,
Yep.
Charles, tell us, for people who may not be familiar with the HR 40, can you, in broad terms or narrow terms, can you speak
Right.
about what that is?
So pretty much it's a law that's been put in place in terms of African Americans. There's various components in terms of restitution, we're talking compensation, satisfaction, guarantees of direct giving of funds to Black folks who can sort of who have a direct linkage to slavery in this country. So with that said, it's been put to the House of Representatives pretty much every year, but unfortunately, it's sort of been put to the wayside, as often things are when it comes to Black folks in this country. So I think now it's a matter of all like-minded individuals, not just Black Americans, but just all folks in this country, to recognize that the evils of racism continues to be prevalent within this country. And I think it's now up to us to develop the means for which reparations must and shall take place within this country. So with that said, we're sort of within the collaborative developing the foundation as to what that looks like. We sort of outlined some of those prospects within the last podcast, so please check that out, ladies and gentlemen. But I think now, myself along with other like-minded individuals will sort of develop what that tangibly can look like in terms of its implementation for the Black community moving forward. I think this is a powerful initiative that, again, as you mentioned, Diane, it's sort of taking a grassroots approach in terms of sort of putting our message out there. And as a groundswell of support sort of initiates, we could be in a place where our voice will be heard and these reparations will take place. But again, to that point, it's not a matter of us looking for anyone else to sort of hear our case and hear our request. It has to be sort of something that I believe has to be demanded moving forward.
Thank you, Charles. And I did find the website. I can bring that up. But first, let me say that we are a multiracial, we're Black-led, multiracial collaborative. And at yesterday's meeting, when Charles started to speak about moving forward as a collaborative to make demands, there were people within the collaborative, and even he already sent an email out to everybody in the collaborative, and the Black members, but also the white members. Christina Ball, she's our web design person. She spoke right up and said she wanted to be involved. Jordana Hart, she's a fabulous lawyer, is ready to, she's already done years of research on this topic. So
I received the email from Lou as well with regards to that as well, in terms of doing his part as well. Yep.
Yes, and Lou Gittleman. So we're getting ready to break out with this. And so one of the things that I was thinking about since last night was yes on reparations, but that to me involves engagement with a discussion. So when we think about South Africa, for example, there was a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So as Jordana says all the time, we can't reconcile that which has never been conciled. So maybe it's not called for us the same thing. We're not the same as South Africa, but maybe it's a truth, justice, reckoning, apology, sincere apology, and then movement toward reparations. And so this, as we were talking before we came on today, these discussions will take place in the white community. We've got white people on our collaborative who can guide we've got people who can guide discussion. And that's one of the roles that we are going to play, to engage and guide dialogue on race, our racial history, and reparations. Once we go through the process of all of this dialogue, which in my mind, I've thought about it for years, I think about it possibly taking place at your community college level and your state college, university level, because every university has audio visual. And so it needs to be, the discussions we're going to have need to be scheduled and put out there so the whole country and the whole world can watch. So we're going to engage this level of discussion, and then from that, a shaping of reparations. This will be Black groups. This will be African American groups with ties to slavery. This will be white groups and non-Black people of color. Everybody needs to engage this, because race is the underpinning of the United States. And so I'm going to bring up our new website so that you can see this is who we are. We are the Racial Justice Collaborative. Our work is about healing our racial divide. And so this stepping forward with a demand led by Charles, he's going to do this for us. We're going to follow his lead because he feels it. He feels it the strongest. We all feel it, but we're ready for leadership. He's going to lead it, but we all will contribute to this. And here we are, the racial justice, some of us in the Racial Justice Collaborative. And this is our mission. Our mission is to heal our racial divide. That's our mission. So I'll just, you can join us. We already talked about one of our events. We can talk about more of them. You can donate to our efforts. You can hire us to work with your organization, and you can share our content on social media. Again, here is the event, Sharing the Black Experience with Children, Saturday, February 27th, 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. It's a free event. Donate if you can. So I'm going to stop that sharing. Just wanted to show people that this is our mission, healing our racial divide. So let me bring Pharaoh into this discussion. So Pharaoh, so how do you see this big countrywide discussion with us? We're coming forward. We'll adjust and shift as time goes on, but we're going to come forward strong. What do you think about what we're doing?
I think that we're doing important work. We're laying down a lot of the groundwork. It's important to be able to discuss a lot of these sorts of paths or aspects or routes in a nebulous sense, and I think that definitely plays to certain people's skill sets, and it doesn't to others. But I think in the collaborative, with the group of people that we have assembled, it has a combination of people that are good in the micro and the macro, and so we are now effectively beginning to work on both levels of that, which is equally important.
That's a good observation. Charles, what Pharaoh just said, we're working on the micro and the macro. How do you envision that? What do you see in that? And then Pharaoh, you can join in. What does that mean?
And we had a conversation about that in terms of strategic short-term and long-term planning. So obviously we have various events which are upcoming in terms of incorporating huge gathering, a groundswell of support among various stakeholders. But even in the interim, in terms of just that micro aspect, we're actually within the collaborative developing protocols for just putting the message out there on social media in terms of just consistent messaging in regards to reparations across various topics within the Black American experience. And I think is really important, not only for the Racial Justice Collaborative, but for like-minded individuals as well, to sort of take on this mantle. And as you know, as I'm talking, I need everyone to just simply Google, if you just want some perspective, Joe Biden's executive orders, which he's put in place. Very little has to do with specifically tangibly affecting Black people in this country. Most of the focus is on immigration. I'm not saying it's a bad focus, but in terms of Black folks feeling that someone or some entity outside of us is going to do the work for us, it's probably not going to happen. So it's really important for Black folks in this country to recognize, A, that we have a real tangible time and place right now to really affect change. I think it's the air is ripe for a revolution. The air is ripe for change. And I think we all have to just take on this understanding that we have a responsibility, not only for the Black experience, but for our families and for our children's children, to do something now. Because, you know, as our, you know, children's children gets older, they're going to ask us, well, during this time, what did you do? So you don't want to be caught in there, well, you know, I had to work and I didn't really have the time. You don't want to be caught in that argument. So I think, you know, if it's well within your means to do so, do your part. And, you know, this is, I believe, our way of hoping to ride this wave for change in this country. And, you know, with that said, really quickly, there is a precedent in this country for reparations being given out by the U.S. government in terms of descendants to the Japanese Americans, you know, who were directly affected from World War II, in terms of Native Americans who had their land taken away. There were reparations given out to these select groups within this country. So there's a precedent for that. So now it's a matter of Black folks in this country demanding that the precedent be set for us moving forward.
I agree, Charles. And I think that it's important for us to put a shape to this movement. We've already spoken some important words. We said truth, justice, reckoning, apology, and reparations. And we've also said this is reparations must have a precursor, and that precursor is a big countrywide discussion with white people. We need everybody to lend their lens, their perspective, so that we can look at the history of the United States and see what we say in our website is healing our racial divide. So nothing less than that. Not settling for anything. One thing that's important to me when you speak of history and saying, where were you when this was happening? The last time there was a concerted big effort, that was right in the middle, actually, 1964 Civil Rights Act. And that was what? 60 years ago. 60 years. So, and that's why Charles says, this is the moment. And we had this discussion over these last couple of weeks here on this Let's Talk About Race series. And if you remember, if you were listening to the first one, when Charles said, and I'm saying to, this is not now me saying what Charles said, I'm saying to Black people everywhere, don't give up a moment, do something. And you remember I said, okay, Charles, no, I disagree. I think we should plan. But then over the time I've learned and I've watched, and I realized that it's important to keep up the momentum. Look at poor George Floyd. He died just before Juneteenth. He died, and the world erupted, and people were everywhere. Black Lives Matters on every corner and marching and doing. And now, less than about 6 months from then, or so, a little 6-7 months from then, it's all ebbing away. And so now I see what Charles means. If we don't capture the moment, and if we don't gather the energy around the moment and pull it in and then create something and then put it out there. So this is what the Racial Justice Collaborative is doing. We are capturing the moment. We are grassroots moving forward with a demand, and we are shaping that up: truth, justice, reckoning, apology, reparations. So you're going to keep hearing, and we're going to get more, we're going to get stronger in our clarity, in our demand.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes. It's, you know, there's 60 years. We've waited 60 years. And see, as somebody who was in the 60s, I remember those. If you got to watch Eyes on the Prize. If you watch Eyes on the Prize, you can see the unfolding of the civil rights movement. And one of the big things about that was that it was a Black movement. I mean, later on, clearly there were white ministers, there were white people that got involved. But what kicked this off, it was the suffering of the Black community that said no more, no more. And so 1964 comes along, a Civil Rights Act is created. It was diluted. It was diluted. It wasn't for Black people. It was for Black people. It was for Latinos, Asians, everybody, and it was for white women. Now, maybe I'm not arguing that all those people need to have visibility and need to have recompense, but what got diluted was the focus on Black. And so we have not had anything about Black people. Reparations is going to be, and I'm going to say, not just Black people. This is going to be a Black discussion for sure, but this is African Americans demanding from the United States of America, not just the government, the United States of America. That's who that demand goes out to, on behalf of descendants of enslaved Africans. That's who we're looking at. Now, the discussion can shape it up differently, but I'm telling you right now, this is for the Racial Justice Collaborative. This is what we're looking at, and we're going to hold it because we know the problem of diluting. And pretty soon, African Americans are left out again. And so when we're talking about this talk for reparations started right after the Civil War, and that's why you hear the House Bill 40 acres and a mule. It was a promise. I mean, that's just the barest minimum. But this is a promise that will be kept. It's time.
All right. I think, do we have time for to just discuss some of the other events that we have upcoming?
Yeah, we have about 8 minutes. So can we ask? Okay, go ahead, Charles. How do you want to?
No, I was going to say no. Definitely want Pharaoh to discuss the event that he's planning. I guess the roots of anti-Blackness within the colonial framework, right?
Either that one, or we've got two. He's got two. One is the other one is white supremacy, and it's the root, white supremacy : the roots of anti-Blackness.
Right.
So, or you can talk about the concept behind both of them. Whatever you want to do, Pharaoh.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of similarities, so thinking about the overlap will be important for that.
Okay. So we're preparing now a 2.5 hour event and we've got a date for it, April 11th. And it's going to be a narrated event. Pharaoh's going to narrate, and then it's going to be interactive. We're going to have breakout groups every 15 minutes of a dialogue, of a discussion, of a narration. And then we're going to break up into breakout groups to look at the time frame that we just that Pharaoh just narrated, so that people can deep down in their bones start to get the feeling for the 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 uh, the depth of history that we're talking about, the violence of American history toward African Americans and Black people in America.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that's what we're doing. We're answering the question, how did we get here? People want to know, how did
Right.
we get here? So
Right.
that's what we're going to answer. So
And I'm also coming up. Soon, Diana, Lou Getterman, and I, we're taking the next step. So from the session taking place on the 27th, we're going to be coming forth with this valuable next steps in terms of organizations looking to promote literacy amongst African American children, just developing some of those, what the framework would look like. So that's something we're also developing as well. And Mina and I are also developing the civic engagement framework in terms of like within various communities. How do we sort of sponsor that civic engagement, just that intrinsic motivation for folks within their communities being the agents for change within their community. So we're also developing the framework for that as well.
and I know from our discussion last night, I know that Mina, Lou, and Sundiata are
Right.
creating something about a program, and I think Mina said one of the two that Mina's involved, one of the three that she's working on will happen in March. So we're looking to put out something about once a month. And the one that she's working with Sundiata and Lou is on hip hop
The cultural appropriation.
and
Yep.
cultural appropriation. That's a
Right.
big topic. We just had a discussion about that. We talked about because I said hip hop is a Black thing, and so we had to say, okay, but it's spread out, it's worldwide. Yes, but the origins are Black, and so we're going to talk about that and the problems with appropriation. I doubt that there are problems with people loving hip hop and wanting to learn hip hop and share hip hop. The problem becomes the people who create the genre are not compensated. And we are in the
Mm.
United States of America.
Right.
We need money in the United States of America. And so that's the problem with appropriation. It doesn't pay the people who created. So the
Right.
creators get left out.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're at the end of our time. This is an exciting time. Next time we meet, we'll be able to talk more about our efforts. And Charles, can you end us up with something about where what you're hoping to see for the revolution that you spoke about?
Yeah, I'm just hoping specifically for like-minded individuals, in particular Black folks, just to be aware of the conscious awareness of our history in this country, or the lack of just basic human rights, which has been afforded to Black folks in this country. And the fight still remains. Yes, we have more, monetary things that we can place value on, but just overall, we're not afforded that's the opportunities of the various other ethnic groups have been afforded in terms of the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness in this country through various laws and different aspects and different protocols which have been put in place. So I think it's really important for Black folks just to recognize our history and to understand that the war continues, and to not rest on our laurels in terms of believing that, yes, because we did come out in droves in terms of voting, the fight still continues. In fact, I think our fight is even now should be more intense to make sure that our demands are heard. And the fight still continues, ladies and gentlemen. So let's keep up the fight.
Great. Pharaoh, do you have any last words?
Yeah, no, I agree completely with what Charles said. I think that there is value and emotional necessity in being able to take pride and value accomplishments that have been made so far, but it is important to have that be a source of inspiration to continue those things rather than to slow them.
Right.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We're looking to see you again on 2:30. 2:30 on Fridays is our time. Something may come up where we have to change it, but look for us on Fridays. But I'm also going to be posting at least the podcast for this soon. And we have a YouTube channel, Racial Justice Collaborative. You can go to that YouTube channel, YouTube Racial Justice Collaborative, and you can see the past episodes and the panel discussions and the race retreats and all the things that we've done over the last couple of years, or some of the things. So thank you. Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Take care. Okay, now let me see if I can find okay, so now I need to stop it here. Okay, now we're stopped. Okay, so
I think it might be still be recording.